Welcome to another session from Infinity Unbound and getting to secure series with the Infinity Group. And today I'm joined by David and Tristan. Do you want to say hello?
Yeah, hi everyone. Dave Morrow. I work in our partner solutions team aligned to security and the UK market.
And Tristan?
Thanks, Ian. I'm Tristan Shortland, Chief Innovation Officer with Infinity.
And I'm Ian Stretton, a pre-sales architect here at Infinity Group. So this session is going to be quite a sort of a wide topic, but generally around artificial intelligence or AI, and sort of the evolution of that and the technology stack, and maybe some areas of thought that that we can have for you about what you should be thinking about. So if I open up with a sort of opening question around AI. What is it? We obviously have a few different flavors, and there's a few different things out there on the market. There's Copilot from a Microsoft perspective. There's ChatGPT. There's Google. There's all sorts of different ones. Can you just maybe between the two of you give us a flavor of what's out there?
We can certainly try. So from I think what we're really talking about actually is generative AI now. I think that's when I think about our technology stack, particularly in security, we've used AI extensively for a number of years, but now what we have is we've kind of opened up that interface to the user, right? So you've got that generative AI and the large language models that come along with it. So the ChatGPT example you gave there, which means basically we can converse with it, right? We can ask it questions in natural language and get answers and responses back in natural language, and then we can iterate and almost have a conversation until we get to a point where we're happy with the content, the output that we were seeking from the AI, the generative AI in the first place. So there's lots to it. Microsoft has various different copilots, and I'm sure we'll get onto some of those a little bit later. But yeah, for me, that is really, I think what we're talking about today now is generative AI, and Microsoft's name for that is Copilot. I love the name Copilot. I think it sums up exactly what it is and what it should be, which is the user is always in control. So you have a Copilot sat next to you who's running the checklist for the particular problem or issue that you've got, trying to solve that problem for you while you concentrate on flying the plane. So you are always in control, and you are always working with the AI to get the desired result and the desired output. So I'll stop talking there for a moment and hand over to you. But that's I guess, a very high level, the Microsoft view.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I mean, the concept of AI has been around a long time. You've got Netflix recommendations and Alexa and Siri and all those kind of things. The hype is certainly around that generative AI piece. And when we're talking to customers and prospects about it, it's understanding that different way of communicating with a computer. So that conversational element. So people are very used to having a problem, searching for an answer, don't get the answer, go back, start again, search again, rather than that conversational interaction where you ask a question, refine the question, refine what the response needs to look like. So it's, there's a big kind of change in mindset, I guess, in how people are approaching problems and then how they're interacting with the computer. So like you say, it's remembering that Copilot's there by your side so you can go there first and ask the question rather than going off and searching and struggling. So it's there's a big change management piece, I guess, which we'll probably talk about later, that comes alongside this new technology, because it's a different way of thinking and a different way of working.
Well, I might use the incorrect terminology, but as hopefully portraying businesses out there. If I was to talk about sort of ring-fenced AI and then I guess open AI, whether that's the correct term or not, but what can you describe what we're actually talking about there?
I guess for us, again, at Microsoft, what we're really talking about is the free version of ChatGPT, if you like, that anybody can use, and it will search the web and provide answers and responses back, versus our enterprise chat, if you like, which is protected and ring-fenced, to use the term you mentioned there a second ago. And what that means is your data stays within the boundaries of your environment from a Microsoft point of view. There was an example where some engineers were using the open source version, and they wanted ChatGPT or whatever the generative AI tool was to proof their particular piece of code or whatever. And what they didn't realize was now that's out there in the public domain, right? So that is public knowledge. So that's effectively a data breach or a data leak. And they've inadvertently shared their proprietary source code with the world. Whereas with enterprise chat, you've got some controls and safeguards around that to stop that from happening, essentially. So there are other differences, but I think that's, for me, that's the main one. I think why stop users using the open source free versions? That's why you can potentially open yourself up to an inadvertent data leak.
Okay, and I guess to you, Tristan, is sort of, so how would you, I suppose, what kind of data could you give AI in that ring fence scenario? And then I suppose the second or the main part of that is then how do you stop it? How do you protect that data once it's been given to these ChatGPT or?
Yeah, so I guess conceptually, Copilot, which is designed for business, keeps your prompt and response secure and doesn't train the public model, still has access to that same large language model behind it with all of the internet as its knowledge, if you like, but also access to your organizational data as well. So you're getting an answer and then applying the context of your organization and your data, so your documents, your chats, your emails, etc., to that. So by using the Microsoft toolset, that's kind of taken care of in terms of, you're not leaking data. The prompt and the response aren't saved. They're also not seen by anyone else. So you can be comfortable in the fact that you're operating in a secure way. What you then got to do is get the tools to the users, right? So if you don't give them that, they will use ChatGPT or they'll use other open source things that they found. And most users aren't going to understand the fact that they're leaking data and information. I've had examples where people say, is this pricing competitive, whatever? Well, you've just told them the public model what your pricing is. It's similar to the code example, right? So the way to mitigate the risk is to give people the tools they need and want and expect now, and then that you're working in a kind of controlled and managed way. They're not going to go and find their own solutions, which have got lots of risks over and above what we've talked about already. So
I guess, you touched on some real world examples there, I think, where maybe data has been leaked. So I guess we can be quite specific in these sessions. What could we do with the use of Copilot, for example, to just make sure that the data that it's got access to is confidential, is private, where it needs to be? Is there ways we can do that?
There are, but I promised I'd let you go first this time. So how about we do that?
Good idea. So and if we're thinking in Copilot world, specifically Copilot for Microsoft 365. The way it accesses our organizational data is via the Microsoft Graph in the context of the user that's asking the question. Therefore, any security controls I've got in place already are respected. So, as long as our security setup is good in the first place, nothing changes by using Copilot to access that same data. But we do want to make sure that data is secure and clean and tidy and relevant. So, there might be things that I can access in SharePoint that I shouldn't be able to, but I might not know about it and I wouldn't happen to stumble across them typically. But with Copilot, there's then a way of them finding that information. So the classic example is I ask it for the CEO's salary information. If it's in a spreadsheet that's been overshared or put somewhere it shouldn't have been, then Copilot will find that and potentially use that to answer the question. So we know we're secure from an organizational perspective and that nothing's going to get leaked out or anything bad is going to come in. But our data that belongs to us, we need to make sure that's secure and clean, and we can use things like sensitivity labels and confidentiality labels and things like that. So those are things that we should be using anyway from a good, clean security standpoint. They just become even more important, I think, when you introduce AI into the mix.
Okay, so if we've got data tagged. And people have listened to some of our other sessions. We've got our identity sorted, we've got our devices sorted. How, and you touched on there, we can now audit. And is there a way that we can even audit Copilot to see what Copilot's doing, and then maybe even audit the estate to see what the estate's doing using some tools?
Yes, I think is the short answer. I think the first step, when we go back to thinking about which generative AI tools are being used, I think that's step number one for me. So yes, if you deploy Copilot, amazing, great, and you have those enterprise controls that we mentioned, But understand what other tools are being used. I think that for me is step one. So make sure that we understand what tools our user is using, and we block any that we don't want to be used, right? So if it's too risky or we're not happy with it, or we've standardized on Copilot, we can block the others. So then we're kind of in a better place out of the gate. And then from an audit point of view, yes, we can look at what users are asking Copilot to do, and we can even put some guardrails and controls around those prompts and the responses that Copilot generates. So we maintain control, if you like, and we've got that audit trail. So if we did ever have to go back and look and see what a user's been using it for, we can absolutely do that.
Cool. And then, say, just thinking about that wider aspect as well, devices, other data, other systems potentially, are there AI tools out there that could help us to just look at the sheer volume of everything that's going on in our organisation?
Yes. I mean, there are many co-pilots at Microsoft, I think is the first thing to say. And what we've really been talking about today so far is the Copilot for Microsoft 365, which is the productivity tool that I think a lot of people have used and seen, and which we use internally and is great. But there is also Copilot for security. And so some of the sessions we've touched on some security topics and aspects previously. And Copilot for security, I think, is a really good example of Microsoft leading the way and innovating. And we've used that large language model we spoke about earlier for a generative AI interface into security. And it, to build on what you said earlier, it does exactly that. So it has, we invested thousands of engineering hours into Copilot for security. It's learned the language of security. It has access to external sources, but as you pointed out, it's grounded in that organization's data and estate. So it knows if you're vulnerable to a particular attack because you have this particular type of servers. So it can reason over huge data sets incredibly quickly and tell you what's happening in your environment, what alerts you should prioritize today, and help you in those investigations and those responses. It's really doing, Copilot for security is really doing three main things: threat hunting, incident response, and incident reporting. So they're the kind of three main use cases that we've got out of the box, if you like. So really helping security professionals, SOC analysts, respond to threats, detect threats quicker, and like I say, reason over an incredibly large amount of data in seconds. Customer feedback's been really strong. I guess the really what it boils down to is two main things for us with Security Copilot. One is time saving. It can save analysts hours a day. So phenomenal time saving, which means we can spend time on the things that are really important and detect more threats and improve our security posture. And then the second really important one is up-leveling junior analysts and junior IT security professionals. We talked in one of the other sessions about the skills shortage in the industry, kind of 4 million jobs globally, I think it was, we said. And Copilot for security will help up-level some of those junior analysts. So, they can do things like reverse engineer malware, write KQL queries that they can't do, right? But because there's a natural language interface that they can ask Copilot for security to go perform that task, and it will go off and do it. So it's a phenomenal tool. It's one of the Copilot family, and I think it's going to change things in IT security moving forward.
But I've seen a few demonstrations of it used in anger myself, but it looks really good. Just a quick on how might an organisation get it?
Get Copilot for security.
Sorry, yeah.
Yes. So the tool will integrate, and I think it's over. I think it's up to 1,000 now. Different integrations we have with third parties from other vendors, but also managed service providers and so on. But you really need to have some of the Microsoft stack in there to get the most out of it. So I would say first step would be to look at things like our E5 licensing, where you're going to get the best of our endpoint, email, data prevention technologies, and then things like our Entra, so our identity solutions. And then you can bolt on things like Sentinel, our SIEM solution there, to that security information event management tool that's going to really bring together all those alerts and events. And I think if you're on that journey, it varies depending on exactly where you are, but if you're on that journey, then Copilot for Security is going to add significant value to your teams. How do you get it? It's available now. It's generally available. You can purchase it. It's there's no upfront cost, if you like. It's a consumption model. So you pay for the cycles you use in Azure as you go.
Cool, thank you. I guess changing tack a little bit. And to yourself, Tristan, I suppose, in terms of let's say we've kind of gone and deployed Copilot, for example, into the organisation. We've turned on some of the tools, but or maybe what we're looking at is as business is what's going to be the value for us? How could we maybe discover the use cases within our own organisation, understand whether there's a real reason or there's going to be a use case for AI moving forward?
Yeah, it's a good question. So we've done it ourselves, been through that on that journey. And for us, what worked really well was creating an AI advocacy group. So we got diverse representation from across the business, which is really important. Everyone's going to benefit from AI in potentially different ways, in different parts of their day and parts of their processes. So made sure we got a good diversity within that group, and then ran working group sessions where we got ideas together. So that's looking at your more common use cases, I guess, around content creation and summarizing emails and drafting responses, that kind of stuff, but also looking for some more niche stuff, I guess, that's specific to their departmental processes or the data sets that they have, and making sure we're capturing all those ideas, then adding some kind of quantitative information to that as well. So how much time have you saved, or how much more have you been able to get done? Actually looking to kind of build a business case as we go effectively and improve some of the ROI whilst using the tools. So making sure we're collecting all that information is important. Then you've got to shout about it. So we use Viva Engage as our corporate social network. So we put good ideas, things that work, things that save time on there so that other people can benefit from them, and really just try and kind of grow the AI usage and footprint within the organisation fairly organically, I suppose. What doesn't work in our experience is treating it like a project. So do some design and deploy the thing and then say, yeah, we're done and off we go. Because it's a change in behaviour, because the technology is changing really rapidly, you need to keep that initiative going. So we keep our working group going the whole time. People want to join, more than welcome to. And yeah, just keep I guess being advocates and championing the technology. And what's been interesting for us is that's helped drive usage of Copilot and benefit from that, and track the return on investment from that. But it's also spun off some other projects. So AI in the context of Copilot is really about productivity fundamentally. So being able to shorten processes and do more quickly, cut down time in meetings, that kind of stuff, which frees up time to add value and create as part of your job. But then the other kind of side of AI is we've got lots of data. Every organisation's got lots of data and it's growing all the time. What can you do to create a genuine USP from that and a kind of differentiator for your business? And once people started thinking about AI and the things it can do, they then started coming up with ideas. Like, what could we do with this data set and what could we do with this? So that's created some kind of spin-off projects. So whether that's a kind of specific Copilot for a niche scenario that we built with Copilot Studio, or whether it's looking at our data and predicting trends and doing what-if analysis and those kind of things to be more proactive in our decision making. Like lots of businesses, they wait till the end of the month and then the month-end process runs and then the ball pack gets written, and then by the end of the month you're looking at the previous month's data. What can we do to actually start being proactive and looking forward and using AI for those kind of things as well. So by creating that group of champions and keeping that process moving, it's really helped to get everyone on board and realise a lot more added value, I think, than we would have got if we'd have just kind of turned on licenses and deployed them to people.
I think I saw it certainly in Infinity Group, is it's very much that snowball effect, isn't it? It definitely, the more people you get involved, and actually when you start to get them releasing their ideas or where it could help them, it just seemed to spawn other ideas off of other people as well. So it really is that sort of everything just rolls up, doesn't it? I think, and we certainly saw that.
that's definitely been my own personal experience as well. It's been exactly the same. I've learned more from my co-workers, peers, colleagues, some doing the same kind of job as me and others doing slightly different jobs. And you hear about this, they're using a prompt or command or using it to do a certain, maybe a mundane task, and then you hear about it, it's like, wow, I didn't realize I could do that with it. And the use cases just continue to grow and grow and grow, and the time savings grow and grow. But yeah, I think it's, just in general with AI, I think we're on the cusp of a really exciting couple of years. These use cases will continue to evolve, and we're going to see innovation, from companies like Microsoft, but also from our customers. So it's going to be a very exciting time to be in the industry for the next couple of years.
So thanks for that. Just to close then with a couple of thoughts on a couple of things, just to leave the audience with something to think about. So I guess to both of you, and you take it in turns, I guess, to answer maybe these two questions around. So for a small to medium business, what do you think could be a really good starting point? We'll go with that one first.
Yeah, so I think I would start with Copilot for Microsoft 365. I think there's a huge gains across a diverse set of users that can be realised by an organisation. So start there and experience some of those productivity gains, see how the use cases grow, and then as you work through that stack, there are other Copilots, as we mentioned earlier, right? There's been some great examples of real innovation from our customers. one that springs to mind in particular was a water company that's created a kind of digital twin of the river network in the area that they're responsible for, so they can do modelling, and just the use cases are really exciting at the moment. So I would start with their Microsoft 365 Copilot. I think that's, I guess and let me just add to that. The reason for that is I think we saw ChatGPT 4 get to 100 million monthly active users faster than anything that's gone before. Social networks and other technologies, right? So don't assume your users aren't using it already, and you don't need to consider it. Young people, old people, are of all different backgrounds are using these generative AI tools already. So make sure you're not left behind.
Yeah. In fact, I'm going to change my last question for you, Tristan, which was, obviously, as you're a member of the senior member of the organisation at Infinity Group, are there things that we need to be thinking about from a business responsibility perspective for our end users and for our data? I'm thinking legal aspects for our employees, how you might protect an employee from falling into issues with AI, for example.
Yeah, that's a good question. So, like I say, for something to go from 0 to 100 million users in 3 months or whatever the time period was, that's a big shift that's happened quickly. So yeah, policy and procedure needs to catch up, right? So there's changes to employee handbooks and policies and things that need to be in place. People need to understand the tools they're working with and the data that sits behind them. We found where we've got specific scenarios, so we've got a Copilot that's specifically for responding to tenders. We've built a Copilot studio, Copilot specifically for that job, so we've got complete control over the data source that it's got access to. So it then becomes an important job to feed and water that data set, so make sure it's up to date. So if you're talking insurance certificates and previous bid responses and things, make sure that's kind of clean and secure and up to date. So you want to make sure that your kind of policies and procedures catch up. From a kind of recruitment and staffing angle, people are starting to expect to have these tools available as part of their job. So for us to stay competitive and attract top talent, in much the same way as people expect to have a laptop and a work mobile phone or whatever it might be, these tools are now becoming an expectation of people coming into the market. So for us, it's important to have them in place already, and it's part of the offering, and that keeps us competitive as an employer, but also has an impact on us as a business in terms of efficiency and productivity. I think it was the Microsoft study that said 57% of people's time was spent communicating as opposed to doing the job they're employed to do and adding value, Copilot for Microsoft 365 for us starts to shift the dial there, and it's lots of incremental gains in terms of not having to go to every meeting because you can catch up on them, or not having to draft everything from scratch. But all of those things added together, multiplied by everyone in the organisation, starts to have a significant impact then on efficiency and profit and all the things that come from that.
I think the term I heard used for that was we all have this digital debt, right? Whether it's your emails and your Teams messages and the meetings you have to attend and all those things. That's kind of the digital debt that a tool like Copilot will help you manage and become more productive.
Good. Thank you. That's been a really good discussion. Thank you for your time. Hopefully you've enjoyed that as well. Join us for one of our other sessions in the Get to Secure.